Welcome back to the channel where we explore the timeless lessons of George Orwell's Animal Farm. In today's episode, we step into Chapter 3, a chapter that celebrates the animals' hard-won freedom with their first harvest, but also gently reveals how power begins to solidify in subtle, familiar ways. Orwell, a master of political allegory, paints the pigs as both organizers and opportunists as education becomes a tool, not just for liberation, but for quiet domination. As the animals rejoice, we're invited to ask, is this truly equality? Or is hierarchy already creeping back in? The animals of Animal Farm, having seized control from the humans, embraced their first summer of independence with unflagging energy and purpose. The hay harvest was their first great test, a moment that would prove whether their revolution had truly given them control over their destiny. Though the tools had been made for humans and were ill-suited to their anatomy, the animals found ingenious ways to adapt. Pigs endowed with greater intellect assumed command roles, offering guidance rather than sweat. The horses Boxer and Clover used their intimate knowledge of the fields to pull the cutters and rakes without reins or bits, needing only a pig's voice calling "Gee up, comrade," or "Whoa back, comrade." Even the ducks and hens played their part, carrying tiny bits of hay in their beaks. United by a common cause, the animals completed the harvest faster and more efficiently than Jones and his men ever had. Not a mouthful was stolen. Every creature worked with pride, and the harvest was the largest in memory. Throughout that summer, life on Animal Farm moved like clockwork. The animals discovered a joy they had never known. Each bite of food a reward for their own labor, not the ration grudgery of human dominion. With Jones gone and no parasitic masters to feed, there was more food and even more leisure despite their inexperience. They faced obstacles such as threshing corn by foot and mouth in the absence of machinery, but the pig's cunning and Boxer's raw strength saw them through every challenge. Boxer became a symbol of loyalty and exertion. Already a hard worker under Jones, he now seemed like the labor of 3 horses combined, volunteering for extra labor each morning before the others rose. Boxer repeated his new personal creed with quiet determination: "I will work harder." Every animal worked to their own ability. The ducks and hens saved bushels of corn by gathering stray grains. No one stole, quarreled, or shirked responsibility, almost no one. Molly the vain mare was often late to rise, claiming foot pain and skipping tasks. The cat's behavior was even more elusive, disappearing during work hours and returning at mealtimes. Her excuses always charming and her affection disarming. Benjamin the donkey remained unchanged. He worked as he had before, slow and steady, never doing more than required, but never less either. When asked whether he was happier, now he gave his cryptic answer: "Donkeys live a long time. None of you has ever seen a dead donkey." And that was all. Sundays were for rest and ritual. Breakfast came an hour later, followed by a weekly ceremony. The green flag crafted by Snowball from one of Mrs. Jones's tablecloths was raised, bearing a white hoof and horn. Snowball explained that the green symbolized England's fields, and the emblem stood for the coming Republic of Animals. After the flag ceremony, all animals assembled in the barn for a general meeting. Resolutions were proposed, usually by pigs, and then debated and voted on. Snowball and Napoleon were the most vocal, though they rarely agreed. Even universally accepted ideas like reserving a paddock for retired animals became battlegrounds over fine details like retirement age. Still, the meeting ended with the communal singing of Beasts of England and an afternoon of leisure. The pigs converted the harness room into a headquarters where they studied trades like blacksmithing and carpentry. Snowball busied himself with organizing animal committees, one for egg production, another for tail cleanliness, and even a re-education group for wild animals like rats and rabbits. He also launched literacy classes. The committees mostly failed. Wild animals remained wild, and most creatures quickly lost interest. The cat briefly joined the re-education efforts, but was seen on a rooftop persuading sparrows to perch on her paw. None were convinced. Literacy, however, flourished. By autumn, nearly every animal had learned to read to some extent. The pigs were fluent. The dogs read the 7 commandments with ease. Muriel the goat could read scraps of newspaper and sometimes shared them. Benjamin could read perfectly, but dismissed reading as pointless. Clover learned the alphabet but couldn't form words. Boxer struggled beyond the letter D. He memorized A, B, C, and D, only to forget them when he tried to move ahead. Eventually, he settled on those 4 letters, writing them daily to remember. Molly learned only the 6 letters of her name, arranged them with twigs, decorated them with flowers, and admired them. The lesser-minded animals, the sheep, hens, and ducks, couldn't remember the 7 commandments. Snowball simplified them into one phrase: 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. He called it the essence of animalism. Though the birds protested, saying they had 2 legs, Snowball clarified that wings were for movement, not manipulation, and should be seen as legs. The birds, though confused by his logic, accepted it. The maxim was painted on the barn wall in large letters. It became a mantra, especially among the sheep who bleated it constantly in the fields. Napoleon, meanwhile, showed no interest in Snowball's committees. He believed the young were the key. After the hay harvest, 2 dogs, Jessie and Bluebell, had 9 puppies. Napoleon took them into a secluded loft, inaccessible without a ladder. He claimed responsibility for their education, and they vanished from public life. The other animals soon forgot about them. Another mystery resolved itself quietly. The missing milk. It had been added to the pigs' mash daily. As apples ripened, the pigs claimed them too, even the fallen windfalls. Some animals grumbled, but the matter was settled swiftly. Even Snowball and Napoleon agreed the apples and milk were to be reserved for the pigs alone. Squealer was sent to deliver the justification. He began with charm and persuasion. "Comrades," he said, "do you think we do this out of selfishness?" Many pigs disliked milk and apples, he claimed, but science had shown these foods were essential for brain workers. The pigs needed them to stay healthy because they bore the burden of leadership, of managing the farm, of thinking for all. "Imagine if we failed in our duty," he warned, "Jones would come back." That threat was enough. The animals recoiled at the thought of Jones returning. Even if it meant giving up their share, they agreed that the pigs' health was a small price to pay to preserve the revolution. And so, without real resistance, a quiet shift occurred. While all animals were supposedly equal, the pigs, by reason of their intellect, their duties, and the looming threat of Jones's return, had claimed for themselves the best the farm had to offer. The dream of equality remained, but reality had already begun to bend under the weight of necessity, fear, and persuasion. Chapter 3 of Animal Farm begins in a season of hope. The animals, fresh from their victorious rebellion, approach their first harvest, not as slaves but as proud owners of their land. They work not for a master but for themselves, and in this shared labor they find purpose, pride, and unexpected joy. Every mouthful of food was an acute positive pleasure. Orwell notes, capturing the elation of freedom translated into action. The hay is brought in faster than ever before. Even the smallest creatures like ducks and hens contribute to the collective effort, and not a single animal steals. For a brief moment, the dream seems real. Yet as Orwell guides the reader through this chapter, he begins to reveal subtle distortions in the dream, tiny cracks that foretell a larger shift to come. Through quiet moments and understated actions, the story moves from triumph to transition, from revolution to organization, and inevitably from idealism to early inequality. The first theme that emerges is the power of collective labor when fueled by belief in a shared vision. The animals liberated from Mr. Jones throw themselves into work with vigor. Boxer, the mighty workhorse, becomes a symbol of this new ethos, adopting the motto, "I will work harder." His effort is tireless, his faith unshakable. Even when lacking tools designed for animal use, the animals adapt, and the harvest surpasses expectations. But the deeper lesson lies in how easily such unity can dissolve if not sustained by justice. The animals' joy comes not only from freedom, but from fairness. Each eats what they produce, no one hoards, and all feel ownership. This reflects a broader truth about societies. After crisis in 2025, following global upheavals, people around the world found a similar drive to rebuild better. Yet many discovered that without clear systems to ensure fairness, even the most hopeful beginnings can quietly give way to familiar inequalities. And indeed, that erosion begins here. Though the pigs do not work in the fields they supervise, their reasoning, superior intelligence. And soon this intelligence becomes the justification for unequal rations. The milk and apples are reserved for the pigs alone, with Squealer, the smooth-talking propagandist, assuring the others, "It is for your sake that we drink that milk and eat those apples." He warns Jones would come back if the pigs fall ill. This is the second theme, the rise of privilege in the name of public good. The pigs claim sacrifice, not indulgence, positioning themselves as necessary leaders. But Orwell, with chilling simplicity, shows the power of a good excuse. The animals, terrified of losing their newfound freedom, accept it. And in that silence, power begins to concentrate. It is a timeless warning. In the modern world, institutions often justify disparities by invoking duty, merit, or stability. Leaders, politicians, and executives may take more of resources, control, or privacy, not because they are corrupt, but because they claim to be essential. And unless questioned, such narratives calcify into norm. What begins as revolution slips into replication. Orwell deepens this critique by exploring education as a double-edged tool. The pigs particularly, Snowball, launch a variety of projects, literacy classes, committees, and public slogans. Yet most fail. The more intelligent animals learn to read and write, but many do not. The 7 commandments prove too complex, so Snowball reduces them to a single line. 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. The animals memorize it eagerly, especially the sheep who bleed it for hours on end. On the surface, this seems like inclusive communication, but beneath it lies the danger of reductionism. Complex ideas are trimmed into mantras. Reason gives way to repetition. Education, Orwell implies, can become propaganda when its goal is loyalty, not liberation. This speaks volumes in today's world. In 25, as digital media compresses knowledge into posts, reels, and hashtags, people often absorb slogans instead of ideas. Truth becomes aesthetic. Engagement replaces understanding. Orwell's message is clear. True education empowers minds to ask questions, not just recite answers. It is in the use of language as a weapon that Orwell's genius shines brightest. Squealer's speech is a masterpiece of manipulation. He appeals to science. Milk and apples contain substances absolutely necessary. Evokes fear. Do you want Jones back? And pleads self-sacrifice. We dislike them ourselves. His performance is so convincing that the animals forget their hunger and agree. Here, Orwell reminds us that words are never neutral. They shape reality. And when language is controlled by those in power, truth can be rewritten in real time. In 25, where AI can generate convincing narratives and influencers shape opinions with curated sincerity, Orwell's caution is urgent. Listening is no longer enough. Discerning motive, bias, and omission is essential. Finally, the most haunting development of all occurs silently. Napoleon takes the puppies. He does not debate, announce, or ask. He simply removes them for their education. No one protests, and soon they are forgotten. This moment, quiet and unassuming, holds the heart of Orwell's warning. The most effective control is not enforced, but incubated. The puppies are not beaten, they are groomed. The next generation is shaped not by violence, but by restriction of access. In the modern world, the parallel is striking when education is curated by a few, when information is filtered by algorithms, and when young minds are shaped in silos, control becomes near invisible. In the end, Chapter 3 leaves readers not with despair, but with a gentle, persistent unease. The animals are happy, they work hard, they sing. But the pigs are organizing, the milk is gone, the slogans are echoing, and the puppies are missing. The revolution is not lost, but the path has curved, and so Orwell invites us not to mourn, but to notice, to observe the early shifts, to question the noble-sounding excuses, and to protect the ideals we fought for, not just in battle, but in routine. Because betrayal does not shout, it whispers. The most powerful revolutions are those we do not recognize as such until the apples are missing and we are told, it is for your own good. And when that happens, the question is not, What went wrong, but rather why didn't we ask sooner? And so the animals worked harder than ever, but with pride, not fear. Yet while most embraced simplicity and solidarity, the pigs quietly secured a privilege, milk apples, even the young. Orwell leaves us with one pressing question: if power begins by protecting others, how soon does it protect itself, in your view? How does today's society reward those who work with their brains? And where do we draw the line between contribution and control? Comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe and follow this journey, because in the next chapter, a new challenge arises. What happens when outsiders begin to question the revolution? Stay tuned for Chapter 4.